Hello to you. Tom's DIY garage is open. Come on in. We'll see if you can find something you like. Everything we do here is designed to save money and be self-sufficient by doing it yourself. Hence the name. Big leap of logic, I know. So today's project is born of surfing the internet, seeing stuff on YouTube or people's websites and thinking, I wonder if I could do that. And so we're going to find out today if I can do that. And it involves the plant that you keep in your house. Some of you have some plants, maybe none. Some of you have a lot of plants, but almost all of them, if you do, are in some sort of potted whatever. Some of them are very ornate, some of them are very plain. All of them, taken in their entirety, especially if you got a lot of plants, can be really expensive. And you gotta wonder, does it have to be? That's where we start. If you go shopping for planters in a big box store, they can get kind of expensive. These small ones, 9 inches tall, it's 25 bucks. These larger ones, 60 bucks. There are some cool options though. As we come around the corner, more plastic designs here. That's $11. But we go on down here and let me show you one that I think will be perfect. This one. It's very simple. It's $7. It's a 10-inch pot. We can make it look stupendous. And after paying the price, here we are. It is a basic plastic planter. It's 10 inches across, stands 9 inches tall. It's got some little design flourishes to make it set itself apart, which is fine, but it has no weight to it, and it's kind of flimsy. So, I mean, it'll do the trick. For $7, you can put a decent sized plant in there. It's got self-draining. Really, what more could you want? Except if you wanted this to be a more substantive planter, specifically to make it look more like stone or pottery. Plastic to that. How do we do that? I'm glad you asked. How about some spackle? So if you'll give me a little latitude to explain, I'm going to start by spray painting this with some primer. The idea is that the primer will allow what we're trying to do to stick to the plastic. So the primer is now dry. Next step is to do the spackle. And you may still be wondering, what are you doing with the spackle? So I've seen this project done with plaster of Paris. I've seen it done with drywall joint compound, but this heavyweight spackling product is what I saw that seemed to have the most success, primarily because it has some flexibility to it. It's also designed for interior and exterior applications in case you want to have the pot outside. So what are we going to do? What we're going to do is we're going to coat the planter with the spackle. And when the spackle dries, the planter will have a stone-like appearance without the stone-like price that we've seen at the store. It may or may not work. I don't know, but I'm intrigued. So hopefully you're intrigued as well, and we'll see if it works together. So this particular spackle product goes on pink, hence the pink color. And when it dries, the pink is gone. That's how you know that it's dry. So we're going to use these scrapers, these plastic scrapers, to spread onto the planter. And we'll go inside all the way past this little flourish there, and then down the side as well. And we'll see how it goes. I am going to wear gloves for this because there's a good possibility that the wet spackle will be a little messy. So I'm going to start by filling in the underside of this little lip, the lid on the top of the planter. I think that'll make it look and appear and feel more solid. So we'll just take a scoop of the spackle and literally just kind of fill in like that. kind of a trial and error process here to find out and discover which way works best to do what it is you're trying to do, if that makes sense. Since this is kind of an arts and crafts sort of approach here, I'm not sure there's a wrong way, because you're kind of making it up as you go along. There it is, all filled in. It's all very basic here. The idea here, though, is as I spread it all over the pot, we wanted to have kind of a rough sort of feel and appearance to it. So that's what I'm going to go for. We'll see if I get there. I think going around horizontally, laterally is the way to go here. I'm finding it's a little challenging to get the finish, the surface that I want because it's all wet. So we'll let this dry, and then I'll go back and I'll fill in some more. So we'll see you after that. After 12 plus hours of drying, the spackle is dry, and it's got a nice kind of rough sort of exterior. I think what we were going for. There are a couple of spots where I would fill in the blanks, if you will. So I will do that in addition to kind of extending the finish to the inside, probably beyond these interior lines on the inside, so that it has kind of a unified, cohesive look. So I'll get to that next. So while the second coat of the spackle dries on that planter, we're going to try another option here. This one involves a common, typical clay planter. Very sturdy, but they almost all come in this kind of terracotta color, because it's how it's made. But you can dress these up as well. You could spray paint them, and that's something, but I'm going to try something that does this time involve some plaster and some other things to dress it up and make it look a little more sophisticated. The mixing instructions are right on the packaging. 2 parts plaster to 1 part water. You can make as much or as little as you need. I'm going to mix just a little bit in this red Solo cup because I think that's enough to just create a covering on the pot. So I'm going to start with that and then pour a little water in there. And then I have popsicle stick just to start kind of mixing it. I'm also going to add some sand to the plaster. It will add some grit and texture to what I want to do. This is what we're left with. It's pretty thick, and you can see it's got that grit in there. What I'm going to do, have the gloves in hand, I'm just going to spread it all over the pot. And you'll notice I put on my shop apron. 2 reasons. 1, it'll make Mrs. Ziska happy because it was a gift from her. And number 2, most importantly, it may limit how messy this kind of sloppy process will get me. So here we go. Again, gloves on the hands, because all I'm going to do here, put the popsicle stick aside. So I'm just going to grab it and kind of spread it on the pot. Just trying to coat it. And you really get a sense as it goes on here that that grit will add a nice texture. It all goes on very quickly, and already it's a very different sort of appearance on the pot. We'll let the plaster dry before we can finish it a little bit more. So the pots are dry and they both have a very different appearance right now. The first one, it's got a nice rough edge to it, and the clay pot, you know, very rough edge. So what do we do about that? Well, next up, you can kind of sand some of it down. This is 80 grit drywall sandpaper. It's not really paper, but it's used for sanding drywall, and it'll work really well, I think, with this, so that you can kind of sand down some of the jankier bumps here and smooth it out a little bit, especially where maybe some of that spackle kind of built up where you don't want it. So just gently run it around there. It comes off kind of like if you've ever sanded drywall, much like a joint compound does. So it's not super stout, but it does do a good job of kind of evening out the rough spots. The clay pot is considerably rougher, and I'm not entirely sure how well the sanding will work on it, but I saw online somebody did do indeed that. So I think you just have to be a little rougher on it and see what you can get. That's why I have actual sandpaper. It has marginal effect. Clay pot, take two. So it turns out the first coating of plaster that I put on here was too thick, and as I started working around it, trying to sand it, it started chipping off and cracking, so I ended up taking as much off as I could, and then I recoated in a thinner sort of covering. I think it'll work better as well. It's not as lumpy. So on to the next step. The next step is using these earth-toned chalks. I got these at an art supply store like Hobby Lobby or Michael's, and the idea here is that you just kind of add some texture, color texture to this, and kind of work your way around. In the end, this is kind of my vision. It's got a bunch of different colors on there, kind of blended together as best I could. It looks kind of earthy, kind of well, it looks very rustic, but certainly different than the terracotta clay pot that we started with. So we have this one and this one as well. I'm gonna finish them. This one's pretty well finished. I'm gonna paint this one, and then I will, well, I'll tell you after I paint them what I'm gonna do next. And here is the faux stone pot, all painted in blue, actually satin rolling surf, according to the label on the can of spray paint. And what I want to do with both of them is put on a protective finish. This is obviously a spray can Minwax. It's a clear semi-gloss, fast drying, and specifically with the one that we put chalk on, this will keep the chalk from rubbing off onto anything else, and it'll add an extra layer of protection for the faux stone as well. So wish me luck. Here we go. And they're done. Two different applications of doing essentially the same thing, taking something very basic and zhuzhing it up a little bit. I don't know how you spell zhuzh. I don't know that it's in the dictionary, but it's a word. You know what I mean. And I think they both turned out really, really nice. And this is something that anybody could do with a little bit of time. This is not about saving money on this particular thing, but rather being self-sufficient and being a little creative, because when you factor in the cost of everything, you might be able to buy something similar and spend about the same amount of money. But what makes this interesting is that this is unique. And as we get into the gift-giving season, this is something you could do to give something that is unique. You know, you put a plant in there and, hey, I made this for you. Or you can make it for you and just you, and be happy doing it. So it's there you go, they're right there. It's an idea that you can think about as you wonder and look around and, I would like to make this unique. That's unique. So tell me what you think. Hit me up on the Facebook, the Twitter/X, the email, and would you do this sort of thing? Have you done this sort of thing? You got something else, another idea? As always, Tom's DIY Garage is open to ideas and challenges. If you've got a question, if I know the answer, I will tell you, and if I don't know the answer, I will look it up and we will tackle the challenge together. All right, I'm off to the next project, whatever that is. When I get to it, I'll show it right here. Until that time, my friends, welcome to Tom's DIY Garage. I'm Tom. Rock on with your bad selves.